So, how would you like to close more client sales? Did you know that there is an art of mastering reading people? And when you know how to do that, you will actually go to the next level of your business. My guest is going to share his formula on how to do that. So, stay tuned.
Frankie Lee, dimmi, qual è senso della vita?
The meaning of life is to live la Dolce Vita, which is the formula for fabulous living.
Hi, my name is Heather Picken, and welcome to the La Dolce Vita Show, the formula for fabulous living. I'm the catalyst in helping you to be more confident, create your dream business, and attract elite clients and live a fabulous life. Here's Heather helping you to upgrade your life to
Fabulous. Upgrade your life to fabulous. Right, Frankie? You're fabulous.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of La Dolce Vita, the formula for fabulous living. And I help thought leaders build a business that lasts. There is a formula that all successful thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs that I've interviewed over the years, they have that secret sauce. And today I'm so excited to be talking about the art of reading someone as it applies to your business, and also, apply it to your everyday life, especially if you're in a relationship. And today, my guest, I want to welcome my fabulous guest, Jamie Green, to the show. So Jamie, thank you so much for being my guest.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Absolutely. Fun stuff.
Yeah, and before we dive into this topic, I was wondering if you could share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I came from London, England in 1983 out to Los Angeles. I'll give you the very quick version. I went to Pepperdine. I studied sports medicine at Pepperdine in 3 years, had an extra year to play with, and stayed in LA. And at the time in the 80s, I was a pop drummer. I was a session drummer. So I kind of spent that, I did my undergrad, as I said, in 3 years. That extra year, technically supposed to go back, but I stayed and I fell in love with someone who ended up being a drug addict. And then she went to rehab. I became a certified alcohol drug counselor, shifted my life completely, became a marriage, family, child therapist, all as a result of that one kind of incident. It just kind of opened up, how destiny works. And so then remained on that path, and I've been a licensed psychotherapist since 1990, which is a long time. And then actually about 8 years ago, I kind of reinvented myself more as a life coach. So I'm still a licensed therapist. I just work very differently. I don't work in an office. I go to people's homes. So I'm kind of in the trenches with people. I would call it really more mentoring than anything else. Life coaching is kind of nebulous, to be honest. But for me, that's really what I do. So there's still a clinician alive and well in me. But what I do is really help people in all sorts of circumstances, be it I work with corporations. I work with lots of couples still in their homes. I help mentor young men figure out what the hell they're doing. I kind of do it all. So the topic that I wanted to bring to you about the art of reading people is because I also teach a lot of leadership, do a lot of facilitation, a lot of leadership. I've been running men's organizations for the last 20 years. So there's a skill set that does exist. And I don't mean technique. I don't refer to this as tricks and techniques. It's just about our humanness and our capacity to use our wisdom and intuition in a very specific way with a goal in mind. Because that's, it's all that kind of stuff.
I love that. And we need these skills, as leaders in our business. We really need to understand, because to me, it's always about mastering the art of something, whether it be sales or, of course, reading people. So let's kind of tie that into business and how we can do that in, talking about, let's just say we have a business meeting and it's face to face. And so what are some of those signs that you're looking for as far as reading people? Are they interested in what we can do to really engage them?
Right. So let's back up one step. And that is what I share with people is in order to be able to actually take in and kind of perceive what you're looking at, there is a step that has to happen first, which sounds easy and it isn't, because it represents knowing yourself really well. And that step is you have to get out of your own way. Okay. And by that, I mean, you can't be self-conscious. You can't be worrying about what they're thinking. You can't be insecure. You can't be trying to figure out, do they like me? All of that insecure crap has to go. So this is kind of a mature quality. And so as a leader, this is really a leadership quality. You have to remove yourself first. Okay. So all of those kinds of things that are very human and very understandable and very natural, you can't be busy worrying about that stuff, because it means that you're not really connecting to what's going on over there. You're still wrapped up in here. We're a little bit self-absorbed for all the right reasons. I mean, that's fair. It doesn't make us selfish. It makes us insecure. So in order to really tune into what's happening, if I'm going to read the room, for example, I can't be busy worrying about what the room's thinking about me. I got to be tuning into them, which means I have to completely trust that I am okay in being who I am. I also have to make sure that the place I'm entering into the interview or the potential meeting is clean. Right? I got to make sure that whatever stress, the traffic, the annoying phone call I just had with my spouse on the way in, or whatever it is, something I'm worried about, I've got to find a way. And that's a discipline, by the way. That's not easy, but it's a discipline. I got to put that to one side and be really present and focused. So that's kind of like the caveat going in. Now that I'm able to get out of my own way, now what I'm looking for, I'm really reading all sorts of things. So there's if there's one takeaway I would want your people to know, of all the things we could talk about, there's a bit of terminology that I want to introduce called context. Okay, C-O-N-T-E-X-T, context. Well, context, the way we use this term in leadership is describing a few things. It's really about how you're experiencing me, how I'm coming across, my body language, my tone of voice, my vibe, my essence, right? I don't mean my overall personality. It's not that big. It's just how I'm being in that moment. So the best way for me to kind of illustrate this, if you go shopping, you go to Whole Foods, and there's lines everywhere, and there's 12 people in front of you. Let's not get crazy. 5 people in front of you. It's really interesting. You will discover 5 different people's contexts and how they're handling that situation. People who are kind of like complaining and huffing and puffing under their breath. People who are just casually schmoozing with the person next to them. Someone who's just like judging and like complaining wants the manager. All of that. It doesn't mean this is who they are. We're catching them in a snapshot of how they're reacting in that moment. So context is how I'm being at any given moment. So 2 things about this. One, as an effective leader, I want to be able to make sure that I'm choosing or taking on the context that's best serving me for this meeting or for the situation I'm walking into. And again, this is not something I can fake. This is something that I have to embody. It's not all about, dressing it up. This is something that people are feeling from me. So it's not something I can bullshit, to be honest. I've got to be able to really embody it, right? And this is also what I mean by getting out of the way. Right, so I got to get any context that's not serving me out of the way, and I got to shift it into this is me being completely present, not pretending to be someone I'm not. I got to embody it. Then what I'm doing is I'm reading the context that I'm walking into, and so what does that mean? There are some people you're going to walk into an interview and they're uptight. They don't have a sense of humor. They're cold. They're aloof. That may be their shtick because that's their HR version of what they do. There's all sorts of different things. Usually, if you look, my whole thing is I lighten people up as much as I can. That's what I do with the most hostile couples yelling and screaming at each other as the therapist. It's what I do in any given situation, not by deflecting, not by just doing some inappropriate humor, but by finding a way to crack them open a little bit. Because if when someone's uptight and someone's insulted, their ego is in the way, nothing is getting through. It's just a waste of time, right? So you got to find ways to try to create an opening. So the best way, that's why I say there are kind of steps to this. It's not an instant read. It's not a psychic thing. It's an intuitive thing, but it really is about building rapport. If I were to put it into language, everyday language, you got to build rapport really quickly, instantaneously, okay? And that means you've got to sometimes, like if you walk into someone who's kind of friendly and warm, and let's say there's 3 people you're walking into interview with, and whatever the situation is, or if it's 3 prospective clients, or there's 3 of them as a management team that you're walking in to deal with, you're going to find that there's probably one of them is an ally. Good chance that not all 3 are really hostile. One's probably an ally. They probably are kind of letting you know they're the good cop, however that looks. And it's important to connect with them, because what you really want to do is you want to create a connection. Look, it's a simple way of saying if someone's going into audition or interview for a job, I'm sure this is not unique to the way I'm saying it, but as the person who's being interviewed, you're the one making the decisions, not them. You're deciding, does this work for me? And not from a place of entitlement and ego, by the way. You're going in there rather than, do they like me? Am I good enough? Forget that. that's never going to work for you. That's a context of insecurity, by the way, and they will sniff it out. So you've got to go in there and you're like, let's see if this is going to fit for me. Let's see if these are my people. Let's see if this is the kind of environment I want to bring my gifts to. And again, I don't mean it from arrogance. I mean it from just a really authentic place of, I got to spend a lot of my time and a lot of putting my hard work and blood, sweat, and tears into this company or into this potential partnership. Is this really a good fit for me? That's not something we say, but it's something I'm holding on to. And when I come in from that place, I'm going to be more grounded. I'm not going to come from a place of worrying. I'm going to be my best self. And if it turns out they don't get me, better I know now. Because it really is about that. Not everyone's going to get everybody, right? So, a lot of it is just comes from a kind of grounded place of knowing oneself and knowing what I'm looking for and not letting the scarcity kind of phenomenon get in the way. Worrying about this is my only chance. Like that desperation, forget about it. Never going to work. And sometimes they're desperate, right? So it depends. So we're kind of looking for all these things. I'm just putting language to it, but it's a feeling. It's really a sense. You got to sense people. You got to feel where they're at. So what I'm doing, even for example, when I get referrals, coaching clients, therapy clients, and I'm speaking to them on the phone, obviously first time, I get a feel for someone in the first 5 minutes. I can really feel like all the things I said to you. Do they have a sense of humor? Do they have really good insight about themselves? Do they have any idea what they're really looking for? Are they really motivated? Are they doing someone a favor by calling me? I can tell by, this happens a lot. Someone will reach out through my website. I'll write them back immediately because that's what I'm known for, and I'll never hear from them. So it tells me the person was ambivalent to begin with. And if they ever do write back to me, I know I'm wasting my time. You know what I mean? So
Right.
you can kind of tell. To me, it's about consistency, dependability. One of the things that everybody knows about me is that there is not one person on this planet that didn't get a prompt response to a text, email, phone call within 30 minutes, an hour, not 24 hours a week, immediately. I'm just on top of it because the only commodity I have is my trust, being trusted, right? My dependability. And so that, to me, I'm modeling to a lot of people. And in LA, where I am, there's a lot of flaky people,
Yes.
as you should be aware. and we should never get used to that. Should never accept that. I went to boarding school at 11 in England. Everything is about being 20 minutes early, not scraping in on time, let alone being late. That's just how I hold it. And I think that you're looking for that also if you go for an interview with someone and they're late. Yeah, life happens. But even if they're running late, they let you know. I can't control traffic, obviously. So I'm always letting people know if I'm running a couple of minutes late, and I will handle it. Sometimes if it's really bad, 10 minutes late, we'll start on the phone. There's just ways to be adaptable to respect people's time. So you're looking for all of that in any given situation, right? And not by analyzing them up and down, not by letting them know, not by being in your head and missing the moment. It's kind of a body intelligence, if that makes sense. You're not really over-analyzing, you're not really thinking this, I'm just expressing it this way. You're really feeling into it.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. And also, just to kind of reiterate what you're saying is that you have to know who you are, especially if you want to position yourself as a leader in your industry, as an expert. You cannot take on the energy of someone that is a mismatch, even if you try to create that rapport and not be so focused on, I have to get the deal, right? I have to kind of seal the deal. And I find a lot of times in business, people do that because when you're confident, when you know who you are and you know what you can provide for people, then you're gonna stand in your power. And that's what I'm all about is teaching people how to stand in their power, command that presence, and what you've beautifully said, being able to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and let your personality come across. I mean, hopefully there's a little bit of personality and there's a little bit of charisma, and there's a little bit of fun, and we don't take ourselves too seriously because everything's so freaking serious in the business world, and it shouldn't be. We should be passionate about what we do. And if you've got a bunch of duds that you're walking into, think again. That's the environment you're working in every day. And we get to choose. That's why I say, don't look, when I went there was a stage in between my therapy life and becoming a life coach and a therapist this way, a mentor. I taught Kabbalah for 9 years. Okay, so while I had my private practice, I taught at the Kabbalah Center. Then I taught full time for 5 years, and I came out of that whole teaching world and started my coaching practice, which is called Off the Couch Consulting, because it was about enough with the therapy couch. That's what that was about. And I did this in March of 2009, April. So I was starting a new business at the peak of the recession where everything was tanking around me. And there was a really smart business coach that I had seen a couple of times. And only because I was kind of coming back into the world from doing my spiritual, mystical life. And she said something that was really helpful. She said, look, don't buy into, which is what I'm saying, don't buy into the fear that there's no jobs available, there's no money around, and there's nothing for you. Because all the people she was working with, writers, directors, producers, and that was a big hit in the entertainment industry at the time, they're all working. And if you come with a mindset that there's no work, it's really true. So because I was starting something new at that time, it didn't change anything. I had come up with a model that worked for that, because it wasn't about years of therapy that no one could afford or had the time or patience to do anymore. My approach is very much short term. I might see someone 3 times. I might see them once. I'm not doing a year of therapy, right? So I'm doing a model that is short term. And also what I was starting, when someone asked me, I did a show like this back then after maybe 6 months of starting my practice. And they asked me, what are the typical presenting issues that you're dealing with now versus say 5 years ago in therapy? And I had to think about it, and it was a no-brainer. And it was people having to reinvent themselves because the bottom had fallen out of every industry. There were just no jobs, right? And so what I was doing was helping people rethink how to approach career, which is, you're a smart person, you have a lot of experience, be a consultant. Don't be a gun for hire. Don't think that way anymore. If there's no hiring, don't worry about it. You're talented. It was, as you know, social media was exploding. The ability to create our own creative venture was just blossoming. And it's just a mindset shift, because I had done that a few times in my career. And it was just encouraging people to do that and not being scared. And the truth is, there's plenty to go around. There always has been, in certain industries, in certain ways. So in the same way, you have to know that you get to choose. You get to choose who your clients are, who you want to work with. And when we go to, there's nothing, I'm desperate and I work with that, I'm in a dead-end job and I'm miserable and I'm afraid to leave. That's, you're going to have panic attacks, basically, can I tell you?
Absolutely. No, I love this conversation in kind of taking the mindset and really, kind of using that as a conversation, because now more than ever, I mean, we're looking at how fast technology is changing, right. How people's businesses, because I work with a lot of, CEOs, business leaders, they're having to reinvent their business or tweak or pivot. And, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, how do I deal with the challenge and the change of what's going on? And, a lot of the unknown variables. So let's talk about that, about, the unknown, the fear that people might have as leaders, sure. that are taking on these new challenges. So yeah. What are some of the tips that you can give people that are watching right now? Because I know a lot of people that are having their business, maybe they're having some growth, or they're kind of like, I need to kind of reinvent myself. I really need to kind of, focus on something that I can really move in that new paradigm.
Okay, that's great. So one of the things that I've always taught people is that creativity and anxiety are mutually exclusive. Okay, those two energies battle each other. So if I'm, for all the reasons you're just describing, I'm a bit angst-ridden, I'm worrying about business, I'm worrying about, being stuck, I'm worried about, is this really, I don't know, is this going to be potentially a way I can, is this scalable? All those kinds of questions. The anxiety is going to choke any possible vision, creativity, imagination, thinking outside of the box, innovation. This is what happens. So it's like writer's block is a great obvious example. It's a textbook example. If I'm worried about a deadline and the pressure of the deadline is getting closer, I can't be creative, so the inspiration doesn't come. I'm not talking about going off and painting. I'm talking about ideas. Creativity is not just art. It's ideas flowing, coming through me channeling stuff, right? So when it comes to how to move from here to there, you've got to have a vision. This is what it comes down to. You have to be able to imagine or have a vision of what that looks like. It doesn't have to be a vision statement. It doesn't have to be some major, you don't have to have the whole thing in vision, but you've got to be excited. To me, let's just keep it in layman's terms and take it out of business terms. We need something to be excited about because it drives us. And if I'm excited about, I remember when I had my private practice years ago, when I was in the Valley, I was in Encino. I was kind of ambivalent as a therapist, to say the least. I was kind of miserable. But I remember that I had a tradition. Every Friday, 5 o'clock, I would go to the new premiere of a movie that was being released at Man Chinese. And I had a tradition, because it'll be Batman, it'll be some huge epic opening back when that was the big theater before all of the, I'm talking about the 80s, early 90s. And I would have a tradition. I'd have several friends and we would go meet. So I'd finish work by 3 on a Friday, no matter what. And we'd go to our 5 o'clock movie, before it would sell out, and then go to dinner afterwards. And it was my treat. And it was the one thing, I mean, it's kind of small potatoes when I think about it now, but it was one thing I looked forward to that got me through a really difficult, challenging, bleak week at times. And I would say to everyone, you got to have one thing that we look forward to. If it's a round of golf, cigar on the deck, yoga class, but it doesn't really matter what it is, each to their own, right? But you have to have something that is exciting you. Now, on a grander scale, that's just getting through a tedious week. On a grand scale, we have to have something that excites us, that helps formulate the imagination and vision, that causes us to not sweat the small stuff and go for it and keep going. If we don't have a vision, if we don't have a plan, if we don't really know what we're going to do, we're not going to get the motivation, the passion, the creativity is not going to flow. And so what we're going to do is start ruminating, obsessing, and worrying, and the anxiety takes over. Again, perfectly normal. It's what happens. But you got to find a place to start. So it's not necessarily, I don't do a lot of career counseling, even though a lot of people are stuck around that. And I always say to them, I'm not a headhunter. I'm not going to get you work. It's not really what I do. But I certainly can get you thinking differently about work. I can get you thinking differently about your skill set and what value you add and all those kinds of things. And then there are people that specialize in that. There are headhunters. There's all these different websites where you can go and see what's out there. But to me, what I really do, not to pretend to be an expert in that, what I do is help people get excited about what they're bringing versus what anyone else might be bringing. Look, I don't know the stats. I can tell you when I got licensed as a therapist in 1990 in LA, there were 50,000 therapists in the larger greater Los Angeles. That was how many years ago? A long time ago. There's probably a gazillion therapists now. It has nothing to do with how flooded the market is in any industry. There's a gazillion lawyers. We're all minimally qualified. We're all credentialed in whatever we do. It's not about how many people are, how many dentists are there, how many orthodontists. What sets us apart are who we are, not our training. We all have mandatory minimal training as professionals, whatever that looks like, and even in the business world, right? So what it comes down to is our qualities personally, our depth, our bedside manner, our character, our ability to really understand and see each other and be compassionate. Those qualities that you don't learn in school, quite honestly, in any school, to me, that's what's going to set someone apart and get them the job or not, or close the deal or not. All the other stuff doesn't matter. There's a lot of very brilliant people out there who have horrible relationship skills, who have horrible management skills, who have awful spirit in the teams that they're managing. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how reputable someone is at all. I work with, as you say, I work with CEOs, but I work with major celebrities too, like powerful, A-list celebrities with 8 homes and God knows how much money in the bank. And they're like adolescents emotionally, absolute adolescents emotionally, have absolutely clueless how to take care of themselves, how to just do it. It's not amazing to me because I see it all the time. But point being that those are the qualities we have to build. It's not about how much power and money we have, because what goes along with the celebrities are their agents and people running the studios, and they're all like children in like playground, the way these people act out. So who cares, right? No one should be taken in by the illusion of that. What matters is when you come up every now and then, you'll come across in any industry someone who's a leader, who's not corrupted, who's not leading with ego, who actually is really committed, who has integrity, who's honorable. Doesn't matter what town they're in, even LA. It's really refreshing when you come across those people. I work with those people. I mentor those people. I encourage those people to continue to be those people, right? So I think that really a kind of larger scale way to answer your question is it gets down to really going inside and doing a little work with knowing ourselves. To me, I'm always going to come back to that. That's just the approach I have in anything, is when we know ourselves and we're true to ourselves and we're authentic, people feel it. People can feel it. People can feel when you're manipulating them. They can feel when you have agenda. They can feel when you're telling them, they're telling you what you know they want you to hear, but it doesn't feel sincere. You can tell when you're being sold something. You can tell when you're being upsold something. None of what I'm talking about has to do with skills and sales and any of that crap. I'm so not interested in that stuff. It's a huge turnoff to me. I don't do sales. I connect with people. And if you can connect with someone and they trust you, what you're offering them, you make good on. You're not going to bait and switch them. I'm all about, over promising and over delivering, right? Not under promising and not over promising. Promise them the world and make sure you can commit to giving it to them, or don't bullshit them. So think big, but make sure that the place that you are coming from, because the other thing is this, we're talking about the perspective of reading other people. You're being read. People are reading you too. I mean, it's not a double standard. So make sure, in the same way that I have all of this sense of feeling people and what's going on with them and how to work a room. If it's 1,000 people, I know how to pull them all in. I know how to do that. It's just it's a lot of practice. It's not a gift. It's a practice that I've developed from lots of trial and error, I'm sure. But I'm being read too. So if I'm being read and people are sizing me up, which of course they should, then I better make sure that I'm being true to who I am every moment, whether someone's looking or not. I always say that leadership is 24/7. A lot of people tend to have this defense mechanism I call compartmentalizing, where they're kind of one way at home and they're one way in business and one way at the golf, the country club. And that's all a fallacy. We have to be true to who we are all the time. So the analogy I give is, as a licensed marriage family therapist in California, if a neighbor were to come over to me, someone says a child's being abused over there, under the guise of my license, I have a duty to follow up, even though it's not my client, it's got nothing to do with me. But as the role of therapist, I need to make sure that someone is following up and calling the authorities to protect that child. That makes sense? Whether it's my person or not, whether I'm at the office or not, 24/7 responsibility. I think leadership in any capacity is 24/7. I think integrity and being honorable is 24/7. I don't think we get office hours around these qualities. We should be that way all the time. That's integrity. Integrity is not, I have integrity when you're looking, or when I'm being interviewed, or it's not branding. It's character. And character doesn't have a rest. Character is full on. So it may sound like a stretch and it may sound like a lot of work, and it probably is, but it's so worth it, because then you don't walk around worrying about what's going to happen to me. You're creating and manifesting the life that you want. You're creating the business. You're pulling those people in. That's more the mystical part of this, but you can appreciate that. None of this stuff is random, people. We're creating it all.
Absolutely.
We're creating the money going away. We're creating the abundance, all of it. It's not random. It's not luck. It's not karma. It has to do with, we're very powerful, self-fulfilling prophecy makers. So I always say to people, you don't have to buy into this philosophy. You don't have to believe in gravity, by the way. Gravity doesn't care whether you buy into it or not. It exists with or without you. It behooves us to develop a healthy respect for it. And it does with the law of cause and effect, and it does with consciousness, and it does with creating a reality. So rather than just complain about it, get on board with what you're trying to create. So focus on, that's what come back to vision. Focus on the vision you want to create. Don't just obsess on how awful your life is, because you're just continuing to perpetuate it.
True.
That kind of stuff.
It's so true. And I just love this conversation. I could be talking about this all day, about knowing yourself. It really goes back to that, which I am a big proponent on, and having a vision, being really clear about that, because to me, I feel the clearer you are, the more clients you will attract, the more opportunities. And the last piece, I really want to go full circle with this conversation, because your expertise is helping people in relationships. And so my story is, I've been disempowered in every area of my life, from money to men, and I've made it my mission, especially helping women leaders, women entrepreneurs to master every area of their life. And I want to talk about relationships really quickly with the time that we have left, and how important, especially for women, to really know who they are, and how that impacts their business if they're not in a relationship that's like too much challenge than support. So how can a woman really navigate around that so she's not losing her business? Because this is something that I experienced in my business in the past. So I really want you to speak to those women.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that my area as a marriage, family, child therapist, my license, everything, the scope is all relationship. I don't deal with psychotic, people. I don't deal with psychiatric issues. I don't deal with mentally ill. It's not in the scope of my practice. By the way, nor in my scope of practice corporate business models. But the truth is, everything is a relationship. So all the work I've ever done with corporations and businesses is relationships. Right? So I always say, when I've done presentations to big businesses, as I've done a lot, I say to them, look, I don't have an MBA. I'm not a Harvard guy. I'm not those business school type guys that you're going to have in front of you. I'm not going to pretend to be. What I am is a relationship guy. And I know that all the issues you have in your business are relationships. And then I start going through it one by one by one. And they just don't think of it that way. But it absolutely is. It's about trust. It's about someone having your back. It's about how do you get the best out of someone in terms of productivity. That's what it's about. It's about enrolling people into not just doing their job, but wanting to be a team player and wanting you to win as the boss. And you can't manipulate that. That's something that has to come from design. So all of this is relationship, including women and how women are running a business. It comes down to the same thing. And this is something, on the relationship front, one of the programs I created is called Alchemy in Love. And Alchemy in Love was created ultimately, initially, for all the women that I was working with. And typically I was working with a lot of women over many years who were really tired of coming up short with the kind of men that they were choosing or the men that they were trying to have relationships with. And it came down to their chooser was really off. The basic raw materials of the man that they were starting with, there was no chance this was ever going to turn into anything healthy. And of course, the women would somehow make it about themselves. So what I would say is, look, you need to look for the essential qualities, the 4 pillars of a man, I call them, to ensure that you're at least starting with a man who knows who the hell he is, knows what he wants, knows what he's doing. You're not finding a fixer-upper. As tempting as it is to come in and create a project out of that, you're not going to get what you need. So have that be a house that you flip, not a man. Because a house, there's an end to that project, and you end up with profit. That's not what happens with men, for sure. That never ends, and you end up broke or broken. So, right. So the Alchemy in Love program, which is something that people can look at. It's actually an app I have on the App Store, Alchemy in Love with me, Jamie Green. And it's really for women essentially to have them start understanding the choices they're making and recognizing, again, back to the reading people, recognizing do they have these qualities is fairly obvious in your first date from conversations and the way you feel with them. Equally, it's also for men, what I call the 4 layers of a woman. Then it's an opportunity for the men to look at, men make all the same mistakes, do all the same things, have all those same blind spots. So it's about looking for the 4 layers, I call them, of women. And then there's the core relationship tools that once you've got someone who's actually healthy, knows what they're doing, knows what they're ready for, knows who they are, know they're ready for commitment versus not ready for commitment, whatever it might be, wants to have a kid, does want to have a kid, those kinds of things, then is how you put this all together. So, being we don't have a lot of time, I would just direct people to that because it's like 4 audio sessions of lots of material about this. And you can find it on my website, which is jamiegreen.com, JAMIEGREENE. All of that material is there too. But I would say that, yes, to me, again, there's no separation between our love life, family life, and business. I think that's a big common mistake people make as they compartmentalize that. Who we are in our consciousness needs to be the same at home, when we're playing sport, when we're studying for exam, when we're driving on the freeway. That needs to be consistent. You can't have road rage over here and be teaching anger management classes over here, which is the kind of stuff that people do. It's like a cardiologist who's chain smoking on his break. Yeah. People are not going to trust that. With all due respect to judging all the cardiologists that smoke, but you're being read.
Yes.
Enough?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, such a great explanation. And I really appreciate you, Jamie, being my guest today.
Totally. Thank you.
And empowering leaders, entrepreneurs all over the world. And I encourage everyone to go to your website, jamiegreen.com. And the link is provided in the show notes. So make sure that you do that. So, Jamie, awesome. Thank you so much again for being my guest.
Cool. Love to come back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to close out the show to my listeners. If you're on iTunes, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the show because that's how, everyone learns about it. And go to YouTube and click on what I call that Pavlov's bell that will notify you when the next episode is ready. So if you found this show to be fabulous, share with your fabulous friends, rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. Wow. And I'll make sure I take a beatbox lesson, right? Or give my little chihuahua a bone. That's me. Fabulous.